The wind howled through the scorched peaks like a wounded beast. Lay curled in his cave, watching the snow pile up against the entrance. He had lived alone for 30 years now, far from his kind, far from the war that consumed both dragons and humans below. The isolation suited him. He had no taste for burning villages or hunting terrified families through burning fields. The crying came at dawn. At first thought it was the wind playing tricks, but the sound continued, thin and desperate, cutting through the mountain silence. He uncurled his massive body and moved toward the cave entrance. His scales scraped against stone as he squeezed through the opening. There at the mouth of his cave lay a bundle of torn cloth. The bundle moved, it cried. Froze, his golden eyes focused on the tiny form, a human infant. The baby girl could not have been more than a few weeks old. Her skin had turned blue from the cold. Ice crystals clung to the ragged blanket wrapped around her. She should have been dead already. Yet she wailed with surprising strength, her small fists punching at the air. Looked around the snow-covered ledge. No footprints led to or from his cave. Someone had flown here. Someone had left this child to die at a dragon's doorstep, knowing what would happen. The smart choice was clear. Dragons and humans had been at war for 300 years. His kind burned human cities. Humans hunted dragon eggs and young hatchlings. A dragon raising a human child was unthinkable. It was treason against his species. The baby's crying grew weaker. Her movements slowed. Remembered another child decades ago. A dragon hatchling named, barely able to fly, caught in a human trap, had found the young dragon with arrows in her wings, bleeding and terrified. He had wanted to save her. The Dragon Council had ordered him to let her die as punishment for flying too close to human territory. She must learn, they had said, had died while watched, forbidden to help. That was when it had spoken against the council. That was when they had exiled him. He looked down at the dying human infant. She stared up at him with dark eyes, still fighting to live despite the cold, despite being abandoned, despite facing a dragon. Such determination, such will to survive. Made his choice. He carefully picked up the bundle with one massive claw, being gentle as he brought the baby inside his cave. The interior was warm from the heat of his body and the hot springs that ran through the mountain. He set the baby down on a flat rock near the springs. The child had stopped crying. Her breathing was shallow. Had never cared for a human before. He barely knew what human young needed. But he understood cold and hunger. He breathed gently on the baby, warming the air around her without burning her. Slowly, color returned to her skin. Her breathing deepened. Then came the harder problem. The baby needed food. Milk, if he remembered correctly from observing human villages long ago. Left the cave and flew down the mountain in the early morning light. He stayed low, avoiding the sight lines of dragon patrols. At the base of the scorched peaks, wild mountain goats grazed. Caught one of the females carefully, being sure not to harm her. He brought her back to the cave and set her down near the springs. The goat bleated nervously at the sight of the dragon, but she was trapped. Used a smooth stone bowl he had collected years ago, one of the few items he kept from his time with other dragons. He milked the goat clumsily, filling the bowl halfway. The goat bolted from the cave the moment he released her. Warming the milk took experimentation. Too hot and it would burn the baby. Too cold and she might refuse it. Settled on breathing on it gently until it felt warm to his sensitive tongue. Getting the baby to drink was another challenge. She was too young to drink from the bowl, tore a piece of cloth from the blanket and soaked it in milk. He held it to the baby's lips. After a moment, she began to suck on the cloth, drawing the milk. It took nearly an hour to feed her. When she finally fell asleep, collapsed beside the hot springs, exhausted. He was an ancient dragon who had fought in countless battles, yet feeding one tiny human had drained him more than any fight. While the baby slept, examined the torn blanket more carefully. There were words stitched into the fabric in human language. He could read their script, having studied humans during the early years of the war. The name Kate was embroidered along one edge, nothing else. No family name, no village marking. So the child had a name at least, Kate. 3 days passed, established a routine. He hunted for the goat each morning, milked it, and fed Kate. He kept the cave warm but not too hot. He learned to recognize her different cries. Hunger sounded different from discomfort, which sounded different from cold. On the 4th day, Kate smiled at him. It was a small thing, just a baby's reflexive expression, but something in his ancient heart shifted. This small creature trusted him completely. She had no fear of his scales, his fangs, his size. To her, he was simply the one who cared for her. That afternoon, a shadow passed over the cave entrance, moved quickly, hiding Kate behind his body. Another dragon circled outside, an old male named who flew patrol routes over the scorched peaks. Landed at the cave entrance. I see smoke from your hot springs. You are still alive, old one. I am alive, replied carefully. Behind him, Kate made a small noise. He coughed loudly to cover the sound. Tilted his head. The council has called for the final assault. We strike the human kingdoms in 3 months. Even exiles must fight or be declared enemies of. I will consider it, said. Studied him for a long moment. You always were too soft. That is why you live alone in these mountains. He launched himself from the ledge and flew away. Watched him go. The dragon had not noticed Kate, but the visit was a warning. The war was escalating. Dragons would be flying over the scorched peaks more often. He could not hide a human child forever. That night, as Kate slept in the warmth of the cave, made a decision. If he was going to raise this child, he would do it properly. He would teach her both human ways and dragon wisdom. He would give her every advantage to survive in a world that wanted her dead. He looked down at the sleeping baby. She had survived abandonment, freezing cold, and being left at a dragon's door. She was a fighter. Perhaps with his help she could survive even more. Curled his body around the sleeping child, keeping her warm and safe. For the first time in T10 years passed like smoke on the wind. Kate ran through the cave tunnels with sure feet, knowing every turn and passage by heart. Her dark hair flew behind her as she raced toward the main chamber. She carried a bundle of firewood in her arms, gathered from the sparse trees that grew on the lower slopes. Father, I am back, she called out in dragon tongue. The words came as naturally to her as breathing. Lifted his head from where he had been napping near the hot springs. You went lower than I told you to go. Kate grinned. The best wood grows lower, and I was careful, no one saw me. She was 10 years old now, tall for her age and strong from climbing mountain paths. Her skin had tanned from days spent outside. She wore clothes had taken from abandoned human settlements, adjusted to fit her growing body. Around her neck hung a small dragon scale, one that had shed years ago. She never took it off. Sighed, the sound rumbled through the cave like distant thunder. You must be more careful, small one. Dragon patrols fly over these mountains daily now, if they see a human child. I know, Kate said, her smile fading. They would kill me or try to. She switched to human language, which had taught her from books he had collected. But I cannot hide in this cave forever, father. Not forever, agreed, but for now, yes. Kate set down the firewood and climbed onto a rock near his head. This was their usual spot for lessons. She had done this since she was small enough to fit in his claw. Now she had to climb. Tell me about the war, she said. It was a question she asked often. Knew she needed to understand. 300 years ago, a dragon egg was stolen from the council chambers. Dragons believed humans took it. Humans this. Both sides refused to listen to the other. Fighting started. More died. Revenge led to more revenge. Now neither side remembers how to stop. But what if the egg was not stolen? Kate asked. What if it was just lost? Then 300 years of death have been for nothing, said quietly. And neither side wants to believe that. Kate was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Father, why are my hands always so warm? Even in winter, I never feel cold like I should. Had noticed this too. Kate could stand in freezing wind without shivering. She had once touched hot stone that should have burned her and felt only mild warmth. It was not normal for humans. I do not know, he admitted. Perhaps growing up near the hot springs has changed you, or perhaps you are simply unusual. Like you, Kate said with a smile. Like me, agreed. They spent the morning on lessons, taught Kate about dragon flight patterns and how to spot patrol routes from the ground. He showed her maps he had drawn of the human kingdoms to the south, explaining their defenses and cities. Kate absorbed everything, her mind quick and curious. In the afternoon, Kate practiced with a wooden sword had carved for her. She was teaching herself to fight, copying moves she remembered from descriptions of human warriors. Her form was clumsy but determined. Watched her train. You need a real teacher for that. You are my teacher, Kate said, swinging the wooden blade. I am a dragon. I know fire and claws, not human swords. Kate stopped and looked at him. Will you teach me to breathe fire? laughed a sound like rocks tumbling. You are human, small one, you cannot breathe fire. Are you sure? Kate asked seriously. Maybe I could learn. Before could answer, a shadow crossed the cave entrance. Kate moved instantly, disappearing into a side tunnel they kept for emergencies. She had practiced this many times, positioned himself to block any view of where she had gone. A young dragon landed at the entrance. He was bright red with golden eyes, barely into adulthood, recognized him immediately. Cinder, his nephew, the son of Sister. Uncle, Cinder said, bowing his head respectfully. I did not know you still lived here. I still live, said carefully. Why are you here, Cinder? Hunting mountain goats, Cinder replied. The council has increased our food stores. The final assault on the human kingdoms begins in 1 month. He paused. They say all dragons must fight, even exiles. I will not fight, said flatly. Cinder looked uncomfortable. Uncle, they will name you a traitor. They will send hunters for you. Then let them come. Cinder stepped further into the cave, looking around. You always were stubborn. His eyes swept over the interior, noting the human-sized clothes hanging on a rock, the small wooden sword, the cooking pot that was too small for dragon use. Tensed, Cinder was young but not stupid. Uncle, Cinder said slowly, what are you hiding? Before could answer, Kate stepped out from the tunnel. She had decided hiding was pointless. She walked forward with her head high, stopping a few paces from the young dragon. Cinder recoiled, flames gathering in his throat. A human? Uncle, what have you done? I have raised a child, said calmly, as you can see. Kate spoke in perfect dragon tongue. My name is Kate, is my father. He has cared for me since I was a baby. I mean no harm to dragons or humans. Cinder stared at her, the flames dying in his throat. You speak our language. Father taught me, Kate said simply. He has taught me many things. I know you are called Cinder. Your mother was Sister, Lyra. You lost her in a human raid 5 years ago. I am sorry for your loss. Cinder looked between Kate and confusion clear on his face. This is treason. You know this, Uncle, if the council learns of this. They will kill us both, finished. Yes, I know. Then why, Cinder demanded, why would you do this? Kate answered before could. Because when I was dying at his door, he chose mercy. He chose to save a life instead of taking one. That is why. Cinder sat back on his haunches, processing this. He looked at Kate again, really seeing her now. A human child with no fear in her eyes, speaking his language, standing before a dragon without trembling. You fear nothing, Cinder said to Kate. I fear many things, Kate replied honestly. But I do not fear my father, and I hope I do not need to fear you. The cave was silent except for the bubbling of the hot springs. Cinder wrestled with his choice. Report them to the council and fulfill his duty, or keep their secret and become a traitor himself. Finally, Cinder let out a long breath. I saw nothing here. I found no goats and returned to patrol. Bowed his head. Thank you, nephew. But uncle, Cinder said urgently, the war is coming to an end. The council plans to destroy the last human kingdoms completely. They want to finish what was started 300 years ago. If this child stays hidden here, she will be the last human alive in a few months. Kate felt cold despite her unusual warmth. All humans, they want to kill everyone. The council believes it is the only way to achieve peace, Cinder said. He sounded unhappy about it. Many young dragons question this. We did not start the war. We only continue it because we are told we must. But the old dragons refuse to hear any other path. Kate looked at, Father, I must warn them. The humans need to know. If you go to the human kingdoms, they will not believe you, said. You speak dragon tongue. You have lived with a dragon. They will think you are a spy or worse. Maybe, Kate agreed. But I have to try. I cannot let them die without warning. Cinder studied her with new respect. You would risk your life for humans who do not know you. They are my kind, Kate said. Just as dragons are father's kind, if there is any chance to save them, I must take it. Knew she was right, though it pained him. Kate had grown beyond the safety of his cave. She had a destiny larger than hiding in the mountains. Then we must prepare you, said heavily. You will need to know everything about human customs, their military, their way of thinking, and you will need to know every weakness dragons have so you can prove you are telling the truth. Cinder stepped forward. I will help. I can tell you about the Council's attack plans. If you are going to warn the humans, you should have accurate information. Kate looked between the two dragons, her family of choice. Thank you, both of you. As the sun set over the scorched peaks, three unlikely allies began planning how to prevent a genocide. A exiled Kate stood at the gates of Granite Hold with her heart pounding. The fortress city rose before her like a mountain of stone and steel. Walls 50 feet high surrounded it, covered with archer positions and defensive towers. Guards walked the battlements day and night. This was humanity's last major stronghold, and it looked like it expected war at any moment. She had traveled for 5 days to reach this place, walking through forests and across plains, avoiding both dragon patrols and human scouts. Had taught her how to move unseen. Cinder had told her which routes were safest. Now she stood before the massive iron gates, knowing this was the moment everything could go wrong. Two guards blocked her path. They wore thick armor and carried spears. Their faces were hard from years of war. "State your business," one guard said. His name was Carl, according to the badge on his uniform. "I need to speak with your commander," Kate said in human language. Her accent was strange, a mix of dragon pronunciation and human words learned from old books. "I have information about a dragon attack." The guards looked at each other. The second guard, a woman named Helen, stepped closer. "Where are you from, girl? What village?" "No village," Kate said honestly. "I was raised in the Scorched Peaks." "The Scorched Peaks," Carl laughed harshly. "Nothing lives there but dragons and ice. Stop wasting our time with lies." "I am not lying," Kate insisted. "Please, you must listen. The Dragon Council plans to attack in less than a month. They want to destroy all human kingdoms. I know their flight patterns, their weak points, everything. I can help you." Helen grabbed Kate's arm roughly. "How would a human girl know dragon plans unless you work for them?" Her eyes narrowed. "You are a spy." "No," Kate tried to pull free. "I am trying to help you." More guards appeared. Within minutes, Kate found herself being dragged through the city streets. People stopped to stare. Some shouted at her. A few threw rocks. They thought she was a traitor, someone who had sided with their enemies. Kate was thrown into a stone cell beneath the fortress. The door slammed shut with a heavy clang. She sat in the darkness, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. Had warned her this might happen, but what else could she have done? Let the humans die without trying. Hours passed. Finally, the cell door opened. 3 people entered. 2 were soldiers carrying torches. The third was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. He wore the uniform of a high commander. This had to be Grant, the military leader Cinder had told her about. Studied Kate for a long moment. "The guards say you claim to have information about dragon movements. They also say you claim to come from the Scorched Peaks, which is impossible." "It is not impossible," Kate said, meeting his eyes. "I lived there with the dragon who raised me." The cell went silent, then laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A dragon raised you, and we are supposed to believe this." "Believe it or not, it is the truth," Kate said. She switched to dragon tongue, speaking a full sentence fluently. "The Dragon Council meets in the volcanic chambers beneath Mount Ash. Their leader is the Ancient, who lost 3 hatchlings in the early years of the war." Stopped laughing. "What did you just say?" Kate switched back to human language. "I spoke in dragon tongue, taught me. He also taught me about your people, your history, your tactics. I belong to both worlds and neither. And I am here because in 3 weeks, 500 dragons will attack this fortress at dawn. They will come from the east, using the sun to blind your archers. They plan to burn Granite Hold to the ground and then move on to the smaller human settlements." One of the soldiers spoke up. "Commander, she could have learned dragon sounds from captured prisoners." "No prisoner could teach that," said slowly. "That was perfect dragon speech. I have heard it enough times in battle." He moved closer to Kate. "Show me your arms." Kate rolled up her sleeves. The markings on her skin were visible even in the dim torchlight. Strange symbols that had been there since she was a baby, faint but clear. Drew in a sharp breath. He turned to one of the soldiers. "Get Peter, now." The soldier ran off, continued staring at Kate. "If you are lying to us, girl, you will die a traitor's death." "I know," Kate said simply. 10 minutes later, an old man entered the cell. He walked with a cane and had white hair that fell past his shoulders. His eyes were sharp behind thick glasses. This was Peter, the scholar Cinder had mentioned. Pointed at Kate's arms. "Look at her markings." Peter moved closer, holding his torch up to examine Kate's skin. His eyes went wide. "Where did you get these?" I have had them since birth, Kate said. Peter traced one of the symbols with a shaking finger, not quite touching her skin. These are old script, human writing from before the war. We have only seen them in ancient texts. He looked up at. These symbols spell out words: bridge, peace, hope, and this one here, he pointed to a mark near Kate's wrist. This means chosen. Chosen for what? Demanded. The old texts speak of mediators, Peter said quietly. People who could speak to both humans and dragons, who could force understanding between species. We thought it was just legend. But if this girl is real... I am real, Kate said. And I am telling you the truth. The dragons are coming. You must prepare or everyone here will die. Pace the cell. Even if you are telling the truth about the attack, how do we know you are not leading us into a trap? Maybe the dragons sent you to make us prepare in the wrong direction. Kate understood his suspicion. In his position, she would question too. I can prove I am telling the truth. Ask me anything about dragon tactics, their flight formations, their breeding grounds, their weak points. Ask me things no human should know. Thought for a moment. Then he said, where do dragons store their eggs during wartime? In the crystal caverns beneath the northern ice fields, Kate answered immediately. They choose that location because the cold preserves the eggs and because humans cannot survive the temperature long enough to reach them. Peter gasped. We have always wondered about that. Our scouts never found dragon nests. Asked more questions. Kate answered each one perfectly. She knew about dragon patrol rotations, about their leadership structure, about which young dragons were questioning the war, and which old dragons were pushing for complete human destruction. She knew details that no human prisoner could have learned and no spy would share. Finally held up his hand. Enough, either you are telling the truth or this is the most elaborate trap in history. He looked at Peter. What do you think? I think we should listen to her, Peter said. Those markings do not lie, and her knowledge is too detailed to be false. Made his decision. Bring her upstairs, chain her if necessary, but I want her in the war room. If we are going to face 500 dragons, we need every advantage we can get. Kate was brought to a large room filled with maps and battle plans, gathered his top commanders and soldiers. They filled the room, all staring at Kate with suspicion and curiosity. Addressed them. This girl claims to have information about a dragon attack. I know this sounds insane, but hear her out. Ask your questions, then we will decide what to do. For the next 3 hours, Kate answered questions. She drew maps showing dragon approach routes. She explained their attack formations and timing. She identified which dragons were the most dangerous fighters and which were reluctant warriors who might break off if the battle went badly. Some commanders believed her, others thought it was a trick. But all of them agreed on one thing: they had to prepare. If Kate was right and they did nothing, Granite Hold would fall. If she was wrong, they would have wasted resources on extra defenses. A middle-aged commander named Frank spoke up. Even if we believe you, girl, what do you expect us to do? We have 800 soldiers and maybe 200 trained archers. You are talking about 500 dragons. We cannot win that fight. You can if you know their weaknesses, Kate said. Dragons are arrogant. They expect you to be terrified and disorganized. If you show discipline and target their weak points, you can hurt them badly enough to make them retreat. What weak points? Asked. Kate pointed to a sketch of a dragon she had drawn. The wing joints are vulnerable. The space between the neck scales can be pierced with a strong spear. The underbelly is soft if you can get beneath them. And most importantly, young dragons will panic if their formation breaks. They follow the old dragons, take down the leaders, and the young ones scatter. Studied the sketch. You are asking us to trust battle tactics from a 15-year-old girl. I am asking you to trust what I learned from a dragon who fought in this war for 100 years before he realized it was wrong, Kate replied. The room was quiet, then nodded slowly. We will prepare, but you will stay under guard until the battle happens. If this is a trap, you will be the first to die when the dragons attack. That is fair, Kate said. Over the next 2 weeks, Granite Hold transformed. Based on Kate's information, repositioned his archers to target the eastern approach. He had his soldiers build barriers that would force attacking dragons into formations where arrows could do more damage. He trained teams to use long spears to target wing joints. He organized fire brigades to handle the flames that would inevitably hit the fortress. Kate helped with everything. She was still under guard, but she worked alongside soldiers, teaching them what had taught her. Some soldiers refused to speak to her. Others listened carefully, realizing she knew things that could save their lives. Peter spent hours talking with Kate, learning about her life with. He treated her with kindness, unlike most others. "You are a bridge between two worlds," he told her one evening. "That is a heavy burden for someone so young." "I know," Kate said, "but someone has to try." On the night before the predicted attack came to see Kate. She was in a small room, no longer in a cell but still guarded. "If your dragons do not come tomorrow," said, "I will have you executed as a spy and a liar." "They will come," Kate said with certainty. "Sinformation is always accurate." Was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Do you really believe peace is possible after 300 years of killing?" "I do not know," Kate admitted, "but I know that if no one tries, the killing will never stop." Left without another word. Kate lay awake that night, thinking of Alone in his cave. She thought of Cinder, who had risked everything to help her. She thought of all the humans sleeping in Granite Hold, unaware that tomorrow might be their last day alive. The sun rose over Granite Hold like a ball of fire. Kate stood on the fortress walls next to, her hands gripping the cold stone. Every soldier in the city was at their position. Archers lined the battlements. Spear teams waited in the courtyards below. Fire brigades stood ready with water barrels. The sky was empty, clear and blue and peaceful. "Check the sun's position. You said they would come at dawn." "They will," Kate said, though doubt crept into her voice. What if Cinder's information had been wrong? What if the Dragon Council had changed their plans? Then she saw it, a dark line on the eastern horizon, barely visible against the rising sun. "There," Kate pointed. Raised his hand, every eye turned east. The dark line grew larger. Individual shapes became visible, dragons, hundreds of them flying in formation. "Positions," roared, "archers ready." The dragons came like a nightmare made real. Their wings blocked out the sun. Their roars shook the fortress walls. At the front flew the largest dragons Kate had ever seen, ancient beasts covered in battle scars. Behind them came the younger dragons, filling the sky with red and black and silver scales. Kate recognized the leader immediately, the ancient. He was massive, 3 times the size of, with scales like black iron. His eyes burned red with centuries of hate. The dragons spread into attack formation, just as Kate had predicted. They prepared to dive from the east, using the sun to blind human defenders. "Hold," commanded, his voice carried across the walls. "Wait for my signal." The dragons dove. Fire built in their throats, ready to turn Granite Hold into ash. They expected the humans to panic, to break formation, to die screaming. Instead, the humans did exactly what Kate had taught them. "Now," shouted. The archers fired, but not randomly. They targeted the wing joints of the lead dragons, aiming for the exact spots Kate had marked on her drawings. Spear teams threw their weapons at the underbellies of dragons that flew too low. 3 dragons fell from the sky in the first attack, their wings pierced, crashing into the plains outside the fortress. The other dragons pulled up in surprise. Humans were not supposed to fight back this effectively. Roared in fury, he breathed fire directly at the walls where Kate stood, grabbed her and pulled her behind a stone barrier. The flames washed over the battlements, but the barriers Kate had helped design protected most of the soldiers. The battle became chaos. Dragons circled the fortress, breathing fire and trying to break through the defenses. Humans fought back with arrows and spears and determination. Buildings burned. Soldiers fell. Dragons crashed into the courtyards, wounded but still fighting. Kate watched it all with horror. This was war. This was what had been happening for 300 years. Both sides killing each other, neither side willing to stop. A young dragon broke from formation, flying erratically. Kate recognized him, Cinder. He was supposed to be with the attack force, forced to fight by the council. Now he dove toward the walls where Kate stood. "Cinder, no," Kate shouted in dragon tongue. But Cinder did not attack. Instead, he landed on the battlements, his eyes wild. "Kate, you must stop this. Plans to kill every human in the city, even those who surrender." Had his sword drawn, ready to kill the dragon, Kate stepped between them. "Wait, this is Cinder. He helped me." "A dragon is a dragon," said coldly. "And a human is a human," Kate shot back. "But saved me anyway. Cinder risked his life to warn me about this attack. He is trying to help." Cinder spoke in human language, his accent heavy but understandable. "I do not want this war. Many young dragons do not want this war, but the old ones will not listen. They say all humans must die. They are wrong. Roar interrupted them. The ancient dragon had seen Cinder on the walls talking to humans. His rage was visible even from a distance. Traitor screamed in dragon tongue. You betray your own kind for humans. Cinder turned to face the leader. I betray nothing. I choose to think for myself instead of following blind hate. Dove directly at them, his claws extended, his mouth full of fire. He was going to kill Cinder, Kate, and anyone else nearby. Kate felt something strange happen inside her. The markings on her arms began to glow, not brightly but with a steady pulse of light. Heat built in her chest but not painful. It felt like power. Without thinking, Kate stepped forward and raised her hands. She shouted in dragon tongue, "Stop." The word came out wrong. It came out with force, with power that no human should have. The air shimmered around Kate. Every dragon in the sky felt it. Every human on the walls felt it. Pulled up from his dive, confusion breaking his rage. What was that? Kate felt dizzy. The power faded as quickly as it had come. But something had changed. She had felt every mind nearby, human and dragon, connected for just a moment. She had felt their fear, their anger, their pain. Peter appeared at her side, supporting her. The markings, they reacted to your emotion. You are a true mediator. Kate steadied herself. She looked up at who hovered in the air, staring at her. I am Kate. I was raised by the wise. I speak for both humans and dragons because I belong to both worlds. Sighs narrowed. The exile, he still lives. He lives, Kate confirmed. And he taught me the truth about this war. He taught me about the dragon egg that was stolen 300 years ago, the egg that started all of this. That egg was taken by humans, roared. We found the evidence. What evidence? Kate challenged. She was terrified, but she pushed forward. What if the egg was not stolen? What if it was simply lost? What if someone made a mistake 300 years ago and no one has been willing to admit it since? Laughed bitterly. You expect me to believe 300 years of war started over nothing. I expect you to consider it, Kate said. How many dragons have died in this war? How many hatchlings lost? How many parents mourned? Thousands, said quietly. The anger in his voice faded slightly. And how many humans? Kate turned to. Thousands answered, tens of thousands. Kate spread her arms. All of you dragons and humans, you have killed each other for 3 centuries, families destroyed, children orphaned, cities burned, nests raided. And for what? Because no one was willing to ask if maybe, just maybe, the war started over a mistake. A older dragon flew closer. Her scales were green, and the human kingdoms attacked our nesting grounds first. A human commander shouted back. Only after you burned 3 villages. Because you killed dragon scouts. Because those scouts attacked our farmers. The accusations flew back and forth. Everyone had a grievance. Everyone had lost someone. The war had created so many reasons to keep fighting that no one remembered the original cause anymore. Kate felt the power building again. Her markings glowed brighter. Enough! Her voice carried across the battlefield with unnatural strength. I am going to show you something, both of you. I am going to make you feel what the other feels. She did not know how she knew she could do this. The power simply existed inside her, waiting to be used. She reached out with her mind, connecting to both and suddenly felt what felt. A human commander who had lost his daughter to dragon fire, who fought not from hate but from desperate need to protect what remained of his people, who went to bed every night wondering if tomorrow would be the day his soldiers were all killed. Felt what felt. An ancient dragon who had lost 3 hatchlings in the early war, who had watched his entire family die over centuries, who led attacks not from cruelty but from bone-deep certainty that it was the only way to end the suffering. Both of them staggered. Both of them understood, for the first time, that their enemy was not a monster. Their enemy was someone who had suffered just as much as they had. Kate's power spread further, touching every dragon and human nearby. For a brief moment, the entire battlefield felt each other's pain. Human soldiers understood dragon grief. Dragons understood human desperation. The war had created only victims, no victors. The fighting stopped. Dragons hovered in the air, uncertain. Humans lowered their weapons, shaken. Kate collapsed. The effort of connecting so many minds had drained her completely. Peter caught her before she hit the ground. Blood ran from her nose. Her markings flickered and went dark. Kate, Cinder landed beside her, his voice frantic. Landed on the fortress walls, the ancient dragon looked at the unconscious girl. What did she do to us? She made you understand, Peter said quietly. That is her gift. The old text spoke of mediators who could force empathy between species. She made you feel what your enemies feel. Looked out at his dragon army, then at the human defenders. Everyone was quiet, processing what they had experienced. I felt his pain, the ancient dragon said slowly. The human commander, I felt him mourn his daughter. And I felt yours, said, approaching carefully. His sword was sheathed. Your hatchlings, you never recovered from losing them. The two leaders stared at each other. 300 years of war stood between them, but now they understood each other in a way that had never been possible before. If we continue fighting, said heavily, more will die, more daughters, more hatchlings. The cycle will never end. No, agreed, it will not. Kate opened her eyes weakly. She looked up at and standing near each other, not fighting. Does this mean you will talk? Looked down at her, you are daughter. Kate woke in a soft bed. Sunlight streamed through a window. For a moment she thought she was back in cave. Then she remembered the battle, the power, making both sides feel each other's pain. She sat up quickly, her head spun. Peter sat in a chair beside the bed, reading an old book. Easy, he said gently. You have been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days, Kate looked around. She was in a small room inside granite hold. Where is everyone? Did the fighting start again? No fighting, Peter assured her. The truce holds, barely, and are negotiating in the Great Hall. Both sides are camped outside the fortress, watching each other but not attacking. Kate swung her legs out of bed. She was still weak, but she had to see what was happening. Peter helped her stand. They walked slowly through the fortress corridors. The Great Hall was filled with tension. Dominated one side, his massive body barely fitting in the space. Several other ancient dragons stood with him, all veterans, and his commanders filled the other side, armed but not openly threatening. Between them sat a large wooden table. Maps covered its surface. Both sides were arguing. Your dragons burned 4 villages last year, was saying. Those deaths must be answered for. And humans destroyed a nesting ground 3 years ago, countered. 20 eggs were lost. Do you expect me to forget that? We did that in response to you attacking our supply wagons. Which we did because you killed dragon scouts. Kate could see how this would go. Both sides would list grievances for hours, days, months. The war had created an endless cycle of revenge. Neither side could let go of their pain. She stepped forward, still unsteady. This will not work. Everyone turned to look at her. Eyes narrowed. The mediator wakes. You nearly killed yourself with that display of power. I did what I had to do, Kate said. She approached the table, Peter supporting her. But making you feel each other's pain for a moment is not enough. You are already falling back into old patterns, listing grievances, demanding justice for past wrongs. What else should we do? Asked. These crimes cannot be ignored. No, Kate agreed. They cannot, but if you only look backward, you will never move forward. She placed her hand on the table, looking between the dragon leader and the human commander. I have a question for both of you. What do you want for the future? Seemed surprised by the question. I want dragons to be safe, to raise hatchlings without fear, to live without constantly preparing for war. I want the same for humans, said. Safety for our children, peace to rebuild what was destroyed. You want the same thing, Kate pointed out. Both of you want peace and safety for your young, that is your common ground. But the past stands between us, said heavily. Kate took a deep breath. Then we must make a choice. We can spend the next 100 years trying to balance every death, every crime, every grievance. We can make both sides pay for their sins until both species are destroyed. Or we can acknowledge that everyone has suffered, everyone has lost, and everyone deserves a chance at a better future. An old dragon near spoke up. Her scales were silver with age. You ask us to forgive the unforgivable. No, Kate said. I ask you to choose the future over the past. I ask you to decide that your children's lives matter more than your desire for revenge. Was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, if we agree to let the past rest, what guarantee do we have that dragons will not attack us again in 10 years? The same guarantee we have that humans will not hunt our nests again, replied. None, there are no guarantees. Then we build trust, Kate said, slowly, starting with small steps. Peter spoke up, his voice thoughtful. In the old texts before the war, humans and dragons traded with each other. Dragons could reach mountain resources humans could not. Humans could craft tools and goods dragons could not make with claws. Both sides benefited. You suggest we trade? A human commander sounded skeptical. I suggest we start with something simple, Peter said. Something that requires both sides to cooperate. Trade is risky for both sides. If either betrays the other, the trade fails. That mutual risk builds trust. Cinder, who had been standing silently at the edge of the hall, stepped forward. The young dragons want peace. We are tired of fighting a war we did not start. If the old dragons agree to this, we will support it. Several younger dragons murmured agreement, looked at them with surprise. He had not realized how much the younger generation had changed. Looked at his own soldiers. Many were young too, tired of war. If we agree to peace, there will be humans who refuse to accept it. They have lost too much. And there will be dragons who refuse as well, admitted. Not everyone can let go of hate. Then we deal with them together, Kate said. If a dragon attacks a human settlement, other dragons stop them. If a human attacks a dragon, other humans stop them. Both sides enforce the peace. It was a radical idea. It required both species to police their own and trust their former enemies to do the same. Looked at 300 years of war reflected in both their eyes. Then the ancient dragon said, I will agree to try, but this will not be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy, replied. Over the next week, the framework of peace was built. Kate attended every session, using her power carefully to help both sides understand each other when arguments became too heated. She learned to control her gift better, to share emotions without draining herself completely. The agreement was simple but revolutionary. Both sides would pull back from active conflict. Trade would begin with basic goods. A council would be formed with both dragon and human representatives to resolve disputes. Kate would serve as mediator, with the power to force understanding if negotiations failed. Most importantly, both sides agreed to teach their young about peace. Dragon hatchlings would learn that humans were not monsters. Human children would learn that dragons were not evil. The next generation would grow up without the automatic hate that had defined 300 years. On the day the peace treaty was signed, finally appeared. He flew to Granite Hold and landed in the courtyard. Kate ran to him, tears streaming down her face. Father, you came. Lowered his head so she could embrace his snout. I heard you stopped a war, small one. I am very proud. Approached, the two ancient dragons studied each other. You were always too soft-hearted. And you were always too stubborn, replied. But perhaps we have both learned something. Your daughter has your wisdom, said, and her own strength. She may be the bridge we needed 300 years ago. The treaty was signed in front of both armies. Dragons and humans watched as their leaders formally ended the war. Some cheered, some wept, some simply stood in stunned silence, unable to believe it was real. Kate knew this was just the beginning. Peace was fragile. There would be setbacks. There would be those who tried to restart the war, but for the first time in 300 years, there was hope. As the sun set that day, Kate stood between and Cinder, looking out at the mixed camp of dragons and humans. They were not friends yet. They barely trusted each other. But they were not killing each other, and that was a start. Approached her. You did something impossible, Kate. You made us see each other as people instead of enemies. I only showed you what was already there, Kate said. The capacity for understanding exists in everyone. Most people just need help finding it. Over the next year, Kate worked tirelessly to maintain the peace. She traveled between dragon settlements and human cities, mediating disputes, building bridges between communities. The Order of the Bridge was formed, a group of both humans and dragons dedicated to maintaining peace. Cinder joined. So did several of commanders and young dragons. The work was exhausting. Some days Kate wondered if peace would hold. There were incidents. A dragon killed a human farmer in a dispute over territory. A group of humans attacked a dragon nest. Each time, Kate had to intervene, forcing both sides to resolve conflicts without returning to war. But slowly, trust built. Trade routes were established. Dragon smiths learned to work with human crafters. Human healers learned dragon medicine. Children who had never known peace grew up in a world where the other species was not automatically an enemy. Peter documented everything. He wrote the history of the war's end, making sure future generations would remember both the suffering and the hope. People need to remember why peace matters, he told Kate. They need to remember what war costs. 20 years passed like a river finding its path. Kate stood on a hill overlooking a thriving settlement. Humans and dragons lived here together, trading goods and sharing knowledge. Dragon young played with human children, learning each other's languages. It was not perfect. There were still tensions, still prejudices, but it was peace. Sat beside her, he was ancient now, his scales dull with age. You have built something beautiful, daughter. We built it together, Kate said. She had her own child now, a daughter she was teaching both human and dragon ways, just as had taught her. Was quiet for a moment. I made the right choice that day. When I found you at my door, I chose mercy over hate, and that choice changed everything. You gave me life, Kate said softly. I am only returning what you gave me. Cinder landed nearby, now a respected elder among younger dragons. The council wants you at the next gathering, Kate. There is a dispute about mining rights. Kate smiled. The work never ended, but she did not mind. This was her purpose. This was what she was meant to do. As she prepared to leave, Kate looked back at the settlement. Dragons and humans working side by side. It had seemed impossible once. Now it was simply life. She thought about that night long ago when a dragon found a human baby at his door. Could have let her die. He could have killed her. Instead, he chose mercy. One act of kindness, one choice to see past species and hate. That was all it took to change the fate of an entire realm. Kate spread her arms and let Cinder carry her toward the next challenge, toward the next dispute that needed mediating. The work of peace was never done, but it was work worth doing. Behind her watched his daughter fly away. He had lived for centuries before finding her. He had fought in wars and seen empires rise and fall. But the best thing he had ever done was choose to save one small human baby. Sometimes the most important choices are the simplest ones. Choose mercy over hate. Choose understanding over fear. Choose love over anger. That was legacy. That was Kate's gift to the world. And it was enough to change everything. Yes, Kate whispered. Then you have his wisdom, said, and perhaps his madness for believing peace is possible. He turned to, I will agree to a temporary truce. We will talk, but I promise nothing more. A temporary truce is a start, said. Kate smiled before the exhaustion pulled her back into darkness. She had done it. She had stopped the battle. Now came the harder part, actually making peace last. She had done everything she could. Now all she could do was wait. Dawn was coming, and with it the dragons. Dragon, his adopted human daughter, and a young dragon who dared to question the war. None of them knew if they could succeed, but they had to try. The war was coming, and Kate was going to stand in its path. Years he did not feel alone. He had a purpose again. Whatever came next, he would face it. He had chosen mercy over hate, and he would not regret it. The wind howled outside, but inside the cave, a dragon and a human child slept peacefully together, beginning a bond that would one day change the fate of the entire realm.